All right, welcome. Today's video is going to be doing a little bit of bass and panfish type fishing with the new Conquest BFS. I'm also going to be using that on the Phenix Classic BFS, the 7-foot light. So it's going to be kind of a two-in-one. You get to see a couple different new products and how they respond to finesse bass fishing. So if you want to see that, keep watching. Also comment down below what sort of future testing that you want to see with any of these products. All right, so right now the water temp's around 60, a little bit less depending on where you're at. So what I'm going to be going for is panfish, hopefully. I mean, there'll be some bass up shallow, so we should be able to get a good mix of... That is one thing. I'll talk about that right now because it just happened. I was going to wait a little bit later. This isn't my first time using this combo out for bass and panfish. So a lot of times, I don't know if you do it, but I put my thumb on the spool when I set the hook. Not like super hard, but just enough so I can make sure I can get a good hook set, and then I can allow the drag to do what it wants. But seeing how the reel is recessed up here on the top, like pretty deep, a lot deeper than your like standard low profile reels, it really is a big issue. Like when you go put your thumb on the spool, you hit at least for me, I hit the thumb bar. I've been doing that a few times. Like that was a good example right there of how it messes up, because then you pop out your line goes, or if you're reeling in, I haven't done it yet, but if you're reeling in your handle as you're pressing your thumb bar and like trying to re-engage it, you can make those gears slip and, you know, get little nicks in there or whatever. Yeah, that was a prime example right there. Here we go. Ooh, a little bit bigger fish. It feels like a panfish. It feels like a bluegill, but ooh, what is that thing? Oh, it's a big bluegill. We gotta grab the net for this bad boy. It's a big bluegill. Oh, look at the size of that bad boy. Let's see how big that bad boy is. It's about 10 1/4, but that thing's thick. This isn't going to be a how-to video on like your fishing and stuff. It's going to be more so going over the tackle, because I know that the Conquest just came out, and also this rod I've been using quite a bit. I actually really do like it. It's been a little bit better for panfish than I initially anticipated. The Dobbin Sierra, the 700 and the 701, I felt like they're a little too stiff for panfish. I mean, this one, I think the tip might be lighter. I don't know what it is. I'll have to fish them side by side, but I do feel even with like modest sized panfish, you know, maybe 6-7 inches, I feel that it still handles them well enough that, you know, it wouldn't be my ideal, you know, grab it with a deliberate panfish rod. But there's some reeds coming up, and you know, if you're around wood, if you're flipping wood piles or around docks for crappie or whatever, I'd put it pretty high on my list. And one thing I will say about the Conquest is that I had as you saw in my other video with the Classic BFS, I had the SLX BFS on there. That's actually the same exact 7-pound fluorocarbon, not just like off of a different spool, like the same amount of line. So that's going to eliminate that factor. But this casts so much better with these smaller jigs. Like I have this small Jackson jig set up right here. I don't have a scale with me, but I imagine that weighs, I don't know, probably 3.5 grams total, maybe 3 grams. But it casts so, like first I thought it was the rod. That was like, oh, the rod's not really putting it out there, but the reel made a big difference. Yeah, pitching is just effortless. I really do. I mean, I haven't really actually used my Aldebaran much for bass fishing, but you can pitch so nice with that. It's nice. Ooh, come on. Especially on the shaded side of the docks. Like, come on, let me get that. There's gotta be a fish up here. One thing I do when I'm pitching these really light jigs is I point, like after like my follow through, I point my rod tip toward wherever my lure is going, because there's less resistance coming through those guides. Oh, there we go. There's something right here, a little small bass, maybe crappie. I don't know. Oh, a little bass. Oh, there we go. Just a little fish. Yeah, I mean, that was of course it was a smaller fish, but that's why I really like using these micro jigs around these docks. Is because you get less of that splash. It's, especially right now, like how the weather's been kind of up and down. They're not going to be in a real feeding mode. All right, one reason why I do like BFS setups for panfish, I think open water, I actually think spinning setups would be more functional. I still use BFS setups because I have them. But when like there's some immersion vegetation underneath the water that you won't be able to see right now. There'll be a lot of reeds and some like cabbage and milfoil there we go, that'll grow up through here. But what I'm doing, I'm using 7-pound fluorocarbon right now. Yeah, there's a nice little bend in that rod. It's not a terrible bluegill, it's not big. But see, even just pay attention to the bend of that rod, and like look at the size of this bluegill. It's actually pretty thick. It's not a huge bluegill, but that's a decent fish. There we go. I mean, it's not a huge fish. Yeah, it's not a big fish, but it still is pretty fun on this rod. But what I was saying is, I'm able to use, like, if you try to use 7-pound fluorocarbon on those, like, you know, 1,000 or 1,500 size spinning reels, it's a really tough, because you get so many coils because the spools are smaller, so you have memory issues and stuff like that. But with BFS gear, that line comes right off the, oh, I thought I had another one. That line comes right off the spool, and you're able to get a lot less of those memory, like line twist issues that you can get a lot with that like mid-grade fluorocarbon. So if I'm working around, especially like there's some lakes that work around a lot of wood for some panfish, and I mean you could use braided line, but especially on the short line, if you're hitting that shallow water, sometimes you have slack line still, and when the fish hits it, you're not gonna be able to feel it right away until your line gets tight. So that's why I like to use fluorocarbon. And if you're fishing clear water, you know, whatever, I don't have to mess with the leader or anything like that. But it is one thing I do like using live sonars. You can see how those fish are reacting like that. When I saw, I couldn't tell conclusively, but I saw that there's some, ooh, there we go. There's some bigger fish. A lot of times when you see a lot of those lines that are very close to each other, gonna be smaller fish, especially if they're hanging out real tight, and I don't want to be messing around with them. Like, this is something I want to be messing around with, these a little bit more isolated fish. Dang, I mean, that rod got some freaking taper in it. That's a nice fish. Oh, that's thick. Not as long, but definitely thick. Yeah, oh, I just saw a fish flash right there. That's why I like using these jigs. They're semi-weedless, and also I'm not using like little, if you're using the worms or you're using like smaller jigs, which sometimes you need to, but I can weed through, there we go. I can weed through a lot of those smaller bites and just be more selective with bigger bites using stuff like this. Yeah, there's some nice fish around here. I'm definitely gonna keep fishing, I'll tell you that. Now I'm in that weird paradox where I want to get out of here, but I don't want to turn the trolling motor on and spook them either. Yeah, there's some nice, this must be, oh, there we go, another one. Oh, yeah, that's a gill. I can feel that head shake. Oh, that's a nicer fish. It's pulling a decent amount of drag. Let's see that bad boy. Yeah, another nice one. I mean, it's on now, dang. I'm at the, yeah, one thing I do, I mean, I don't know if the camera can really pick it up much, but having the taper of this rod, that's one thing. Let me get down here. That I've been noticing, I haven't been ripping lips. That's why I don't like to, some people like to use braid for panfish. I like to have that cushion, but that tip, it cushions enough that I can actually, instead of keeping, you know, like a really stout rod, or, you know, using that braid, having that give in your system, but still having that backbone, you can get a good hook set, a good positive hook set without ripping their lips, which hopefully if we get into some crappie, we can really see how that's going to be important. That's one thing I've been really noticing with this rod versus some other bass focus rods that I try to use for panfish, is that I'm not tearing holes in their mouth nearly as much, which then increases my landing percentage. Yeah, there's some bigger fish out here too. There we go. Oh, that's a nicer fish too, dang. Yeah, see that taper, I feel it's like that, it's what might be a preference thing, kind of like with people with like flipping rods, like some like, well, if this is a bluegill, it's nice. But Ooh, that is nice gill. Yeah, that's another big one. I'll measure it just for the books, I guess. It's a hefty one. That's another nice fish, I can tell you that. It's not a bluegill. If that's a walleye, it's big, I can tell you that. Oh, I'm in 12 feet of water. There's some bluegill here. Oh, that's a nice walleye. Nice walleye. Honestly, that was a little bit of a surprise. I think that's, honestly, oh, look at it. Barely got him right in the side of his mouth. Oh, there you go. I'm gonna be honest, that's probably the biggest walleye I caught on BFS. 21 incher. Now that's a nice walleye, and guess what? If you're from the upper Midwest, this is almost a crime, letting go of keeper walleye. There he goes. All right, as you can see, very versatile setup. I mean, I'm not just saying it's specifically this reel, the rod. I think it's more so the rod than the reel. I meant to do a little bit more casting testing and such, but when you get into big bluegill and I mean even the walleye, you gotta let fishing happen sometimes. So for the rod, I do feel it's one of those rods that you can fish for. I mean, like I said before, you can fish for panfish and still have fun. You can fish for bass. It had the backbone to be able to control some bass. So then I got that walleye, and I was able to still be able to control the fish, and it actually decided to fight, like, unlike most walleye. But so it was good that I still felt like, of course, there's like that fun factor, but I felt like I still had control of the fish. And then my ability to be able to run that 7-pound fluorocarbon, especially with the toothy critters, it makes it a little bit, it just gives me that, I could take this one setup out and just feel out the fish. Like, you know, if I want to go bass fishing, oh, I end up catching some bluegill or whatever. That's the biggest takeaway I can really give for this video. I'm not saying specifically it's the certain tackle, but it's one of those things of just building a system that you can get the most amount of versatility. I definitely think this rod is a consideration for the backbone of that setup. But if you want to see more, make sure you comment down below. Like I said, I didn't get as much casting in, so I will do a deliberate just like casting video for the reel of like different lures and such, functional lures, of course, just to be able to give you a little bit more, just give you a little bit more feedback as to see if this reel is going to be for you as far as fit your needs. So I appreciate you watching. Until next time.